Thank you, Tim Minton. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shani Ferreira, Chief Customer Officer, and I'm joined by a host of colleagues, Demetrius Crutchlow, Interim President at New York City Transit, Jamie Torres Springer, President of Construction and Development, and Carmelo Arroyo, Chief Accessibility Officer, is over to the side, making his way over. As we all know, and can clearly feel, we are in the midst of a heat wave that will last through the end of the week. So we want our customers to stay hydrated, cool, and be fully informed about our service. Right now, we are using all 10,000 of our digital screens and social media platforms to let our customers know that a heat advisory is in fact in effect. Our buses and subway and railroad cars are all equipped with great air conditioning, but there are those rare occasions where it is out and it's not working. So what we want our riders and customers to do is report those immediately. Tell an MTA employee, use the help point buttons that are on the platform, call 511, and you could also report that through our various apps. For the remainder of the week, we want our customers to plan wisely. Again, use our apps like the MTA app as well as Train Time to track and plan your trips and avoid times of, spend less time standing on station platforms, which can be hot, as well as bus stops and sidewalks. Again, another plug is to sign up for our text and email alert system at mta.info/notify to learn about real-time service notices, any changes that might be of an impact due to the weather. So with that, I will kick it over to Demetrius Critchlow to give the New York City Transit update. Thanks.
Thank you, Shanifa. I'm joined by two amazing colleagues. I have Ken Darby, who's one of the execs from the bus team, and also Lisa Schreibman, who is the acting Senior Vice President of Subways, sitting in for me while I sit in for New York City Transit. For us, this is what we do. We're always responsive when something comes up, and we treat the heat like everything else. We prepare for it. We recognize that our goal is to provide top-notch service for our customers, and because it becomes 90 degrees, 95 degrees, 100 degrees out, we still need to perform. This week, Mother Nature is putting us to the test. They're saying that we're going to be somewhere in between 90 and 104 degrees over the next several days. You should be prepared just as we are prepared. The worst of the heat is supposed to come between noon and 8 p.m. So we've taken this approach in two different fashions. Safety has always been, as I've expressed at the beginning, my priority. So the first thing I think about is my employees and my desire to keep them safe. So the first thing that we did is issue an internal memo for our employees to tell them to make sure you take breaks. For our management team to continue to look out for your employees, look at the jobs that they're doing to make sure that they can be done, and continue to give people the water that they need, electrolytes that they need, and fluids. We need to make sure that the locations that we have, our air conditioners are working for our crew rooms. Employees are allowed to take the necessary breaks to get what they need, get a break away from the heat. We're responsible for taking care of our employees. That is our job as management, and that's our commitment to do so. For the riding public, we worked around the clock to get in. Today was not the first day that we've handled heat. So our teams have done all of the prep work in advance. Starting back in March, both the subways and the buses side focused our assets to make sure that we were doing what's necessary to prepare to make sure that the air conditioning will be working for our customers. Fortunately for riders, both on our train and bus side, 99% of the air conditioners that you will encounter will be working. 99%. So our goal is to continue to make sure that the subway is not the hottest place that you will encounter. We've also taken the precautions in the event there are other outages. If for some reason we start having brownouts or blackouts within the city, We have generators on standby with emergency crews ready to respond. Our bus teams have already also taken the steps of making sure that if a bus does have air condition issues, it will not go out for service, right? And also, on the paratransit side, we've issued guidance to the vehicles that a vehicle should not be going out to service our customers unless it has the proper AC to be able to keep them cool. Throughout the entire system, subways, buses, paratransit, we will have additional resources assigned to be able to support this need. We also have our emergency management groups focused, watching on different areas that may be impacted. So we are prepared and we're ready to get this going. We have our customers' interests at heart and we'll make sure that they get the service they need. With that, I'll turn it over to Jamie Torres-Spring.
Thank you, Demetrius. Good afternoon. Going to do a couple things. First, a word on behalf of our railroad colleagues from Metro North and Long Island Railroad. A lot of what Demetrius said applies to operations from the railroads, but they are very focused on ensuring safety for customers and employees and also protecting critical infrastructure. The railroads will be reducing train speeds as needed during prolonged durations of hot weather. They'll be checking the operating cabs to ensure cab temperatures are comfortable for the operating engineers. And for critical infrastructure, you've got vulnerable track and power systems and switches to high heat. Both railroads deploy heat patrols to ensure that track inspections are taking place. They have welding crews available, tank cars which are filled with water to spray down any parts of the right-of-way that may be experiencing or are prone to brush fires, and of course closely monitoring power systems and other critical infrastructures. The railroads are prepared to ensure rider safety and critical infrastructure safety. From a capital planning and execution point of view, most will be aware that we put out this climate resilience roadmap earlier this year that describes the vulnerabilities of our system to a number of different climate hazards that are increasing in their severity, and that includes extreme heat. This is a heat wave that's emblematic of what the future will be like in New York. According to the Resilience Roadmap, we'll see a threefold increase in days over 90-degree temperatures by the 2050s. That makes our climate more like the climate of Birmingham, Alabama today. And we are preparing for it by planning to ensure the safety for our customers and protecting critical infrastructure. Shanifa and Demetrius have talked about how we're doing that operationally. We've also been looking at opportunities in future capital plans for station cooling. We're looking at a pilot we're running with the Transit Tech Lab on waste heat recovery from our stations. So there's a number of measures that we have underway. And then, as I said, related to the railroads, we have vulnerability in our system for our tracks and switches, our substations, our communications rooms, our signals to overheating. And that's why we're extremely focused in the recut and reprioritization that we're working on for the current MTA capital program on state of good repair. The way we will address those vulnerabilities are by ensuring that all of that equipment remains in a state of good repair. We're in the middle of the recut. We'll be reporting on that in more detail next week, but that is certainly a priority, and it applies to protecting our systems from extreme heat. So that's the update on the capital program today, and with that, we're happy to take your questions.
All right, first up today is Joe Torres from Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Joe, here in person today.
Thanks so much. I'm here all week. Try the veal. Jamie, can you educate us a little bit about what the excessive and extreme heat often does to the commuter lines, in particular the New Haven line and the catenary lines? What is often the problem that occurs, and how are you getting ready for it?
Well, it's as I mentioned, all of Metro North and Long Island Railroad infrastructure is vulnerable to extreme heat. We have a lot of track out there. We have the power systems for the track. So track is vulnerable to buckling, which can interrupt service, and those power systems are vulnerable if they overheat. They simply stop working, and we need to take service out. The goal is to maintain the very high level of service that we're providing on both railroads. Both railroads are achieving very high, unprecedented on-time performance, and we intend to keep that up throughout the heat wave. So that's an issue for all the lines on all the railroads.
Why is lowering speed an essential approach?
It just ensures that we're not overtaxing the infrastructure.
Catenary lines.
Catenary lines
they tend to sag.
They will sag and are also vulnerable to overheating, and so we're watching out for that throughout the system where we have catenary.
Thank you, James.
All right, right behind Joe, we got Samantha Lieben from New York 1. Sam?
When you initially laid out this resiliency plan, Jano was concerned about communications systems melting down in the heat. So, are you concerned about that? Signaling issues in the subway, what are you doing about that? And also, are you concerned with the loss of congestion pricing money, being able to keep those up and protect those systems?
So yeah, look, we have a $1.5 trillion asset. A lot of it, as we showed in the needs assessment that we've done, it's 100 years old. Of course, we've been maintaining the asset over time, and so we have communications rooms and signal rooms. Some of that does still date back to the FDR administration, and we're working to protect all of that. The key is that we have to keep all of those systems in a state of good repair so that it's not vulnerable to extreme heat or other conditions that will disrupt service. To your question about the impact of congestion pricing, that's the work that the MTA has underway right now. We have the entire construction organization is focused on what we do to go forward. And the key principle with how we go forward is state of good repair. We have to keep our system running safely and reliably. There are a lot of improvements that we're not going to be able to implement that we were planning to implement. Some of that does have an impact on extreme heat. As one example, the re-signaling that we're doing throughout our system, it's called communication-based train control. That reduces the amount of heat that trains throw off from braking and acceleration. We're not going to be able to do as much re-signaling as we had intended in this plan. We'll have more details about that next week, but that's one example of something that is not a state of good repair measure. It's not critical to reliable service and safe service today, and we're prioritizing reliable and safe service today. Again, more details on that next week.
All right, we go forward now with Ben Brockfeld of AM New York. Ben?
Hey, so I got two questions. First off, kind of piggybacking on what Sam asked, a big topic in the climate resiliency plan was the status of Metro North's Hudson line, which is right next to the river and is very vulnerable to the effects of climate change. With the loss of congestion pricing money, are your plans for the Hudson line, going to be curtailed significantly, or is that considered like a urgent state of good repair thing?
The impact of the loss of congestion pricing funds is very serious to the MTA. It represents 30% roughly of the dollars that we had in our current 5-year capital plan, but because we have already awarded a lot of contracts over the last couple of years, it's about 60%, it would have been about 60% of the funding that we had left. There will be implications all across our capital program, and I think that includes work that we had planned to bring the system into a more resilient state. What we're focusing on is state of good repair, and again, we have teams working on this and intend to make a full report to the board next week. I will say, in terms of the Hudson line, the resilience roadmap that we put out a couple of months ago, that is focused on our next capital program. So we are still in a planning stage for the next capital program, and our intention is very much to ensure that all of these critical system improvements, including work on the Hudson line, which is vulnerable to both sea level rise and heavy storms, that will be in the next capital program, and we'll be seeking funding for that as part of the next program.
And one other question, I guess this would be more for Demetrius. Which congratulations on the new gig, by the way. So I wanted to ask, the governor and the mayor have talked a lot this week about potentially banning masks, COVID masks on the subway and the bus. A, what do you think of that? And B, how would you implement a mask ban on the subway and the bus?
So I would consider myself a transportation expert, more of a generalist, right? I am not and a mask expert by any stretch of the imagination. So I'll definitely defer to those who have a lot more knowledge than I do to be able to respond to that.
All right, we got to move on. We only have time for a couple more. Evan Simcoe, Benarski,
And
the
Minton,
Daily.
we need to take my advice and get to one more question so we could all get off
I know
the hot
it's
sidewalk.
hot out there. All right, we're gonna do two. We're gonna do two. Evan, go ahead.
So, two very quick questions. Forgive me. One, there are a lot of folks who stations are very hot, and there are some folks, homeless folks, who are going to be, one would imagine, in the station for quite some time throughout this heat wave. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what plans there are to address their needs. Also, additionally, understanding that there are plans to deal with the communications rooms and the power systems in the next capital plan and figure out, what the sort of long-term fix is. What are you doing, if anything, right now for the next couple of days to sort of secure that infrastructure?
So I'll touch on the stations aspect first. For our employees, the station agents still have the access to the booths, which have air conditioning. So if they need to take a break, we encourage them to take a break. Our goal is to keep our employees safe first. But one of the benefits that we got out of removing station agents from the booths is they also do a walk around the station to make sure that the station and those who are within it are safe. So in the course of their walk in the station, if they observe a customer who does not appear to be doing well, they will contact the proper authorities to respond. For your second question about our resources and what we're doing, the fact remains this is not our first time dealing with heat. This is when our operations folks shine. When we have storms, when we have heat, when we have snow, this is when our operations folks shine. So they are prepared. They already kind of know the drill in advance. We have a heat plan on both sides that focuses on when the temperature reaches this, you do this. And employees always rise above.
All right, last question. Last question is Dave Malone right there
Hi,
from Streets Block.
Jamie, I just wanted to know, a couple people have asked about congestion pricing. Since the governor's pause, has the MTA issued any stop work orders or stopped work anywhere, told vendors not to spend money on any projects up to and including the 2nd Avenue subway?
As we noted, we're still working very hard to figure out the implications and how we respond to the impact on the current capital program. There are a lot of projects that we will not be able to build, and we'll be focusing on state of good repair. We'll be reporting to the board on that next week. We have, in a couple of cases, issued stop work orders on projects that do not strictly meet that state of good repair requirement. We'll provide some more information on that next week, but yes, we have stopped work on 2nd Avenue subway.
All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.